Good morning. It is still morning, yes. Good morning. Welcome, all of you. I'm so excited about today, and I want to thank my partner on this bill on the House side, Chairman Scott. He couldn't take us today, be here with us today, but he's here in spirit. As we take these important steps on marking up legislation, he is taking important steps on marking up legislation in the House today on education and equal pay, so couldn't be here, but he is here with us in spirit. And I want to thank my colleague, Senator Bob Casey, you'll hear from him in a moment, and Senator Mazie Hirona, who, Bob is here. Yes. I'm doing good so far. Mazie's going to be here in a moment. As we today lay out our vision for affordable, high-quality childcare for all. And I especially want to acknowledge and really thank the many, many parents and advocates who are here in this room today and around the country who've been fighting tirelessly for this critically important issue. Your hard work and your dedication are the reason we have seen so much progress in childcare over the past 2 years. And here's Maisie. Because you shared your stories, because you brought your children here to Capitol Hill to meet with lawmakers, because you organized your communities and gathered petitions of support, because you never gave up, we were able to bring our nation's child care crisis to the forefront of the national conversation. And we even made progress last year, securing the largest increase in child care funding ever in a bipartisan spending bill. And while we are seeing how states are using their increased funding to help improve the quality of child care and help more parents afford child care, many challenges still remain for working parents. Healthcare, housing, and basic day-to-day expenses leave little in the pockets of moms and dads who desperately need child care. And to make matters worse, the Republicans' so-called tax cut has benefited those only on the top while doing very little for our middle-class families who need our help and are losing out in our economy today. Because of the lack of child care, working parents are being forced to work fewer hours, turn down high-paid positions, and even quit their jobs because they can't find child care. I know we can do better. Parents in this room and across America know we can do better, which is why we are proud today to reintroduce the Childcare for Working Families Act. This bill will guarantee access to high-quality, affordable childcare for families living paycheck to paycheck and our working middle class. I'm very proud now that this legislation now has the support of 35 of our colleagues here in the Senate and almost 100 members of the House, as well as many of the family, child, and labor advocates who are here with us today who understand the critical need for high-quality, affordable child care. This bill is big and it's bold, and I want to go into a little bit of how it will help our children, their families, child care workers and educators, and our economy. First of all, it will ensure that no parent has to pay more than they can afford on child care. At most, middle-class parents would pay 7% of their income on child care, but parents who make less pay less. In fact, some parents will pay nothing at all. Our bill helps create and expand options for child care in the summer and during non-traditional hours when quality care is even harder to find. It ensures that students and toddlers and infants with disabilities who struggle even more to find the high-quality care they need are able to learn and play alongside their friends and their neighbors. Secondly, our bill expands access to quality preschool for 3- and 4-year-olds to continue to ensure that our youngest learners are prepared for kindergarten and beyond. As a former preschool teacher, I know how important the first few years for a child's development are. I've seen the benefits personally of high-quality early childhood education, and it has impact throughout a child's entire life. Third, our bill invests in child care educators and workers with the training to help our children through the most important stage of development and with the pay they deserve to ensure they're making at least a living wage and on par with elementary school teachers that share the same credentials so they can support themselves and their families. As anybody who's looked for child care knows, teachers come and go far too often to have that security that we need, that when we take our child to daycare or child care, they have the same person there. That's a result of pay, and we've got to address it. Accessible and affordable high-quality childcare is not just the right thing to do, it is the smart thing also to jumpstart our economy. This bill will create more than 770,000 childcare jobs and allow 1.6 million parents to go back to work and give parents the peace of mind that their kids are safe and are being set up for success, because as any working parent will tell you, if you're worried about your kids, you're not doing a good job at work. With their children receiving top-notch care, working parents will be empowered to reach their fullest potential. I know this because I was a working mom too. I know what it's like to worry where to send your kids for high-quality care. And I began my career in politics fighting to save my own children's preschool program from state budget cuts. After being told I couldn't make a difference because I was, quote, just a mom in tennis shoes, I mobilized thousands of parents around the state to fight to save that program. And we succeeded because we made our voices heard. Today, I am inspired by the many working parents and advocates making their voices heard on this issue. We hear you, and we're fighting for you. And I'm ready to keep fighting today to make child care for all a reality. And I'm proud to have all of you by my side. So I really appreciate everyone being here today and look forward to the great speakers that we're going to have who will tell us why this is so important. We're going to begin with Christina Cummins. She is a constituent of mine who's come all the way out here. And we'll start with you, Christina. Where'd you go? There you are.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Christina Cummins. I'm a single parent of 7 children, ages 3 to 9 years old. I live in Des Moines, Washington, so I come all the way from Washington State to talk to you. I've struggled with access to quality childcare and early education for years, from the time my oldest was a baby up until today. I was on a waiting list for 3 months to secure childcare for my oldest son. Later, I qualified for childcare subsidies, and my children were accepted into a home-based center. Just as my children were starting to thrive with the provider's care, we were asked to leave because even though I had the subsidy, she wasn't receiving reimbursements on time from the state. After that, I found a provider I liked with available slots, but she was located an hour and a half away on buses, on public transportation. I could not afford a car at the time, and my children and I were on buses from sunup to sundown just to get to and from this provider and our home. Now my 3 and 5-year-old are each in different partial day early learning programs. My dream is to go back to college and to get my degree in social work or law. But since my 3 and 5-year-old each only have partial day, one in the morning and one in the afternoon, I fear I'm going to have to continue to put off my education. I want to provide a better future for my children and have a meaningful career where I can change things for families. When I think back about all the instability my family has experienced, I'm determined to advocate, organize, and make sure future families have safe, accessible, affordable childcare so they don't have to go through what we went through. I ask you to support accessible and affordable childcare for all families. And so now I want to introduce Senator Bob Casey, who has been a long advocate of early childhood education and care. He is a champion on this issue.
Well, first, Christina, thanks for sharing your story, and these are the stories that will help us pass this legislation. I've often said to some of the advocates, if not others in the room, that your voices, your stories, and your work will be more persuasive than anything members of Congress can do, but we have to do our work to introduce legislation, to make sure that we have momentum behind it, and obviously to get it passed into law. I want to thank Senator Murray for her leadership not only today on this bill, this great bill that focuses on a couple of basic issues, including the lights in the room, I hope. That was just for dramatic effect. But I do want to thank Patty Murray for her years of labor, really laboring in these vineyards, so to speak, to use an old expression, to make sure that we focus on the issue of childcare and what happens in the life of real families. And we're once again grateful that that mom in tennis shoes is now in the leadership of the United States Senate all these years later. So, and my colleague Senator Hirono as well for her work on this issue. She'll be following me after a few minutes later after I make an introduction. But I wanted to start with just a basic premise that brings all of us in this room today. Everyone in this room, and so many tens of millions of Americans, believe something about children that we have to say over and over again. Every child in the United States of America is born with a light inside them, that light representing the full measure of their potential. For some children, they don't need much help. They're born with great gifts, their families have advantages, and they're going to do just fine with very little assistance. But a lot of other children are born with that light inside them, but it might be more limited. And the only way that they can reach the full measure of their potential, the only way that they can enjoy the full benefits of being an American in the United States of America, is if we help them along the way. It is the obligation of every single public official, every federal official, appointed and elected, every county and state and local official, to make sure that the full measure of potential is reached for every single child, not leaving one single child out. One of the best ways to do that is to enact legislation like the one we're talking about today, which focuses on 3 areas, but starts with, of course, the cost of childcare. I won't, for purposes of time today, talk about the early learning part of this, the universal pre-K, or helping the workforce. Both are essential. But just in terms of childcare, here's the reality. We know that every child is born with a light inside them. It's our obligation to help them reach that potential. But at the same time, those families who need the help, those parents who need the help, are not getting the help that they need. Those same parents are crushed with the burden of very little wage growth over 40 years. We live in a country where the wage growth is just a little more than 10%, maybe only 12%, over 40 years, cumulatively. That's the United States of America. At the same time that wages have barely grown, the crushing burdens of healthcare costs, prescription drug costs, the cost of college education, the cost of everything, but one of the highest has been the cost of childcare. We've got to get that cost down. Just think about it this way in terms of Pennsylvania. This is true of the nation as well. In our state, if you're a 2-parent family, the cost of center-based care for an infant can take up as much as 12% of your income. Some years it's higher than 12%. If you're a single mom in the same situation, and it's center-based care for an infant, that can be almost 50% of your income. The current number is about, I think, 46. So in addition to the cost of everything going up and wages barely growing, the cost of childcare becomes yet another crushing burden. We've got to get that cost down. And the only way to do that is to set a goal. And the 7% goal for 150% of median family income is a damn good start on making sure that we get to that goal. So I am happy to support this legislation, thrilled that we have an opportunity at the beginning of a new Congress, and we now have a Democratic House to give it extra momentum that we didn't have just a couple of months ago. So we're happy to be part of this effort, and I also want to make sure that I introduce someone that has lived this life, the life of an advocate, someone who's done this work for years. Zaina Cahill is right behind me. Zaina is the director of Children's Village in Philadelphia, a high-quality child care center serving 450 children, many of whom come from families who are living in poverty. I had the great opportunity to visit the center last year. Zaina is an adjunct professor at Arcadia University in Glenside, Pennsylvania, teaching classes in early childhood education. Before joining Children's Village in 2011, she worked as a preschool teacher at Washington Market School and a special education itinerant teacher at the New York Center for Child Development. She has a master's degree in education, elementary, reading, and literacy from Walden University, and a bachelor's degree in early childhood education, early childhood special education, and psychology from NYU Stannard School of Culture, Education, and Human Development. Zaina, I want to thank you for being here, for being one of the many brave witnesses in this room for this legislation to make sure that we do our part that every child has the light inside them reach the full measure of his or her potential. Thanks very much.
Thank you very much, Senator Casey. It's a pleasure to be here, and we're really grateful for your longtime support of children and families. We do have more than 300 early childhood educators here today, and on their behalf, I'd like to present you with this bear. It's thanking you for supporting Childcare Now.
Now, I like the now.
Childcare Now.
I have to run to a finance
Run.
committee hearing,
Thank
but thank
you.
you so much.
Very nice to meet you.
Thanks for being here. Thanks, Patty.
Thank you for that lovely introduction. My name is Zaina Cahill, and I am the Early Childhood and Learning Lab Director at Children's Village, a high-quality NAEYC accredited childcare center in the Chinatown neighborhood of Philadelphia. I want to thank Senator Murray, Senator Casey, and Senator Hirono, as well as the many co-sponsors in the Senate and the House for introducing the Childcare for Working Families Act today. It will take bold steps such as this to deliver on the promise of high-quality early learning for all of our children and families. At Children's Village, we serve nearly 450 children. 9 out of 10 of our families receive help paying for childcare, 73% are English language learners, and nearly 30% have identified special needs. I began working there in 2011, but after 2 years, I accepted a position with the School District of Philadelphia, where I could, with the same experience and qualifications, earn more money, with the goal of paying off my student loans while trying to save for retirement and maybe the possibility of a house. However, I quickly returned to Children's Village, where I make less money, but because of the excellent quality of our programs, I am supported in my work with children and families. I am passionate about working with children, and I believe in the profound impact of quality early childhood education on children's success later in life. However, there comes a point when our children deserve more than their teacher's passion, and that's why we need the Childcare for Working Families Act. Teachers shouldn't struggle daily to support their students, access materials for teaching and learning, or provide for themselves and their own families. We need increased comprehensive investments for our youngest children, their families, and the workforce that serves them in centers, family childcare, and in schools. Or we will be unable to deliver on the promise of high-quality childcare and early learning. Thank you again for your commitment to children and families in all of our communities, and please join me in welcoming Senator Hirono, a longtime champion of children, to the podium. You get a bear too. And Senator Hirono, on behalf of the early childhood educators today, I'm also presenting you with the bear and thanking you for supporting Childcare Now.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Aloha, everybody. How many of you think these are normal times? Raise your hands. Okay, I like to start with that because these are not normal times, and this means that all of us, each one of us, have to continue our advocacy. We have to do more of it, and we have to join hands with a lot of groups and other people who we may not have worked with before, but it's going to require all of us to come together. So I was raised by a single parent. My mother brought her kids to this country to give us a chance at a better life. But my younger brother, who was not old enough to attend school, was left in Japan, and he joined us when he could go to school. It was very tough, and so he never overcame, really, the sadness of being separated from his mother and his 2 siblings, the older ones who came here. These are the kind of tough choices that parents make every single day. And when we start talking about being able to afford early education and childcare, you face, I would say, a triple whammy. First, the cost is really high. You know, in Hawaii, childcare can take up 15% of a family's income. 15%. That's why this bill, which will decrease that to 7%, is a huge change. The second whammy is that even, the lack of early education and childcare workers. In Hawaii, we are lacking something like 30,000 childcare workers. So even if you can afford it, which most families can't, there aren't the people to provide these services. And then even if you are in that field, we pay so little that, oh, there you are, that I mean, you shouldn't have to endure practically, starvation wages in order to provide the kind of care to our children that the children deserve. So I do want to thank Senator Murray and Senator Casey. All three of us have been strong advocates for early education. In my case, evidence-based early education sets the stage for success in a child's life, not just during preschool time, of course, but all the way through. And it's, as I say, evidence-based. And all of us have been huge advocates for those kinds of programs for a long time. And we in Hawaii, we have one of the highest costs of living. It costs money to live in paradise. So, it costs a lot. It's been... it is one of the highest cost of living states in our entire country. So we pay a lot for our utilities, we pay a lot for housing, we pay a lot for everything. And childcare costs have gone up by about 25%. But you think that people's wages have gone up by 25%? No way, Jose. So we need to do this. And it's been a long time coming, and I am hopeful that at some point everybody will wake up to the fact that if you want to talk about economizing everything, including the need for childcare and early learning, we already heard, what it costs our country to not have people be able to go to work, not have people who are in this field earning the kind of income that they need to have a good quality of life themselves. So I have heard from dozens of people in the state of Hawaii about the high cost of childcare, which can take up so much of their income. For example, Samaria Dow, she's a single mother with 3 children who told Hawaii Business, it's a magazine that focused on the high cost of childcare, that she said she just couldn't afford the cost of childcare. So as I mentioned before, in Hawaii, we have 30,000 slots open for child care workers, and you multiply that by 50 states, and that's a lot of child care workers that we need. So we need to do this. But as I mentioned, because these are not normal times, it's going to require all of us, not just those of us who are standing before you as advocates and all of the people who signed on to this bill, but all of us to raise our voices, to continue our advocacy, to join hands with other groups that may not have gotten involved in this issue. But you know what? We need to increase the recognition that this is a huge issue for our country. And we're one of the few countries that does not really provide adequate services for working families in terms of healthcare, in terms of preschool, in terms of just about everything that a lot of other countries already provide. So we are here with this bill to move us on the path that we need to go. Mahalo nui loa. And I need to introduce, although sadly they didn't give me the background that I probably should have, but maybe she can tell you a little bit. I'd like to introduce Sarah Morrison. Are you Sarah?
I'm Sarah.
Where are you from, Sarah?
I'm from Madison County, New York.
Where?
New York.
New York. All right, let's give her a hand. Mahalo.
Hello, everyone. I'm grateful to be here to speak and advocate on behalf of childcare for all families. As the Senator said, I'm Sarah Morrison from New York, and I am the proud mother of 6 children. 2 graduated from college, 2 about to graduate in May, a first grader, and a pre-care. So clearly you can see that childcare is very important to me. I am here because this is something that really matters, and I'm so glad to see this forum that's letting everyone know how important this issue is. While raising my older 4, I was working full-time, going to college, getting my master's, and it was so hard to actually get quality, affordable childcare. Life happened to me, and I ended up actually being in a horrible accident, and while recovering, I needed to get childcare for my little ones, and actually had to go to the resources that I actually gave to other people, because I was a CPS worker at the time, and I had to be on the other end of the spectrum. And so fighting my own county where I worked to get those same subsidies, to get some quality care so that my daughter did not have to watch her mother struggling in recovery so she could be in a nurturing environment. So I am here today to say that it is very, very important. We need this act. All families need this act. Working families need affordable care. I also have a sister who was an educator. That's why this is also important to me. She's an educator in Texas, and while raising her children, she actually had to stop working because it was more affordable for her family to be at home to take care of her children than to work with her husband, because that actually took up more than her salary. So again, I am thankful for being given the opportunity to have a voice, and really just want to let you guys know how much it is really important. We got to push this. We got to get this bill through. Thank you. Now I'd like to introduce Liz Cassidy. She's an early childhood educator from VA. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah, for your inspiring words. My name is Liz Cassidy, and I'm an early childhood educator. So I actually don't typically dress this way. Usually I'm on the floor with young children, so this just wouldn't work very well. But I'm proud to be here alongside parents and other educators, fighting for the kind of investments that we all need, which the Childcare for Working Families Act so wonderfully works to provide. I work at a school in Virginia called Main Street Child Development Center, where we serve 125 young children. We're accredited a high-quality center by NAEYC, 78% of whom the children come from low-income families and receive some sort of assistance to pay for their child care. 69% of them speak another language other than English in their home. And every day, we educators work to level the playing field for our children and their families through high-quality early childhood education, which we know depends on educators that ensure that children supported by their families have the early experiences they need for a strong foundation. As an educator pursuing additional higher education currently, I am proud to be part of a profession that recognizes the need to equip educators well with the knowledge, skills, and competencies that prepare us to deliver the high-quality care to children during their early years. And this is the period of most rapid brain development in their life, so it's so important. But this quality has its costs, and it can't be borne solely by the educators nor by the parents. One of my colleagues is actually both. Something that hit really hard last year when I had her child in my class, because she was teaching right next door to me and making so little that she herself was qualifying for the subsidy that gave her family the child care that she needed too. And she's not alone. Actually, nearly half of child care workers in America rely on public assistance for their families as well. If the Childcare for Working Families Act were to become law, however, we would significantly improve compensation and training for the child care workforce to ensure that our nation's teachers and caregivers have the support they need to thrive. I think that's something that we can all get behind. So please join me in welcoming back, actually, Senator Murray, who's a fellow former preschool teacher, which we very much appreciate, longtime champion, and definitely deserves one of our bears as well. So we thank you so much.
Really appreciate it. Thank you. Okay, so I'm going to do my preschool thing and read you what the bear says, because this is so awesome. This is adapted from Brown Bear, so all of you who are early childhood people know it. Children, children, what do you see? We see educators who love and teach me. Educators, educators, what do you see? We see families stronger with me. Families, families, what do you see? We see childcare working for me. Childcare, childcare, what do you see? We see businesses counting on me. Businesses, businesses, what do you see? We see communities thriving with me. Communities, communities, what do you see? We see Congress investing in me. Congress, Congress, what do you see? We see childcare for all families. This is awesome. So thank you all for being here, and thank you for your advocacy. This is the beginning of the work. This is the day that we start. this year, fighting for a bill that's so important to our families, to our communities, to our businesses, to the future of this country. You're going to go out there, you're going to work hard, you're going to get other people joining you, and for all those people who tell you you can't, remember this. When someone tells you you can't do something, it's because they are afraid you will. So don't let them stop you. Let's go out and get to work. Thank you all so much.